Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Fred Indimuli. Time for us to take a look at the big headlines, and a screaming one here on the front page of the Standard. Name the abductors. And quite a number of people demanding that President William Ruto names the abductors or goes further than the statement he made on Monday this week, which has been interpreted to be an admission that there were indeed abductions. So in matters accountability, President William Ruto's response to a journalist's question on Monday turned out to be self-incriminating, opening the door for renewed calls for him to acknowledge state-sponsored killings and abductions related to the Gen Z uprising. Pressure is now mounting on the president to follow his admission with a concrete action by naming the perpetrators and bringing them to justice. This is a big discussion this morning, and I'm privileged to have with me in studio Julius Ruto, MP Keses constituency. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
And Senator Joe Nyoto of Murang'a. Karibu, Senator.
Asante.
A very telling statement from the president this Monday. And it has been said that the president has approached this issue of abductions and extrajudicial killings quite casually, making statements probably at a public rally in somewhere in Nyanza, and on Monday this week, just answering a journalist's question casually, that we are yet to get a comprehensive statement or report from the government, not even from Parliament. Do you agree that probably on the issue of abductions and killings, as a country, we've approached it a bit too casually?
Well, first of all, remembering this is not the first time the president speaking about the abduction in a manner that implies that this particular shenanigan is happening, and that in his administration he doesn't want to condone it, and that's why he speaks openly about it. And I think we should appreciate the president talking about what is aching the country. There before, then last year, we observed unnecessary disappearance of people. As to how it happened, as to who did it, I think this is a question of time. And knowing that the president is a consumer of the first level of intelligence in the country, he has aided us to give us a healing that this particular act is in its process of being closed. It's a question of time that we allow. It's also giving us hope that questions that Kenyans have been asking is about to be answered. So it's a question of allowing him time, allowing the agents time to conclude, so that we know who was the initiator, who was the designer, and what was the objective of what happened. We also informed some families have ended up losing their loved ones, which is also very emotive, and is something to me should be addressed in a systematic way, in a very sensitive way. But for people to castigate the president on speaking about it, the same people again who were telling the president the other day, why are you silent? You are the killer. You know, that he had already been branded to be the killer. So to me, I think it is a wise way of trying to handle the matter sensitively. So let's allow time, and I know duly it will come. It has come from the president, who else? So it's a question of time, and I know all this will be unraveled.
Talking of time, it's almost a year. Today is 14th of May. This happened last year in June, and probably the months after that. How much more time should we give this administration to get us to a conclusive place where we can actually say, fine, we have closure about what happened last year? Senator.
Thank you, Fred. And I think the first thing that for me I'm concerned about is the fact that the president lied. And I say that because he said that every other victim of abduction had been released to their families. Yesterday, human rights groups presented names of young people who disappeared and whose whereabouts are unknown. And their names, they did not just say some people, they have given out names. And if you look at the Standard today, I mean, Hussein Khalid has said that he is ready to present the families that lost, whose loved ones are nowhere to be found. And so the first concern that I have is that the president can lie in broad daylight about this particular very sad situation. Number two, Fred, is the other thing that worries me is that the president actually admitted that he knows of every other person that has been abducted and of course then also killed, because when he says that he will make sure that it does not happen again, it means he knows those that have been perpetrating this, and he knows he will tell them to stop. You know, the question then is, why had he told them to do it? Because, why I say that is because, you know, the police have always said that they were not the ones abducting these people. I mean, but they have never arrested even one person, you know, that then possibly could have been abducting these people. So when the president says that it will not happen again, you know, the president can say it will not happen again because police are going to deal with anybody that abducts people. But then none has ever been arrested. Mm-hmm. So when the president tells you it will never happen again, then it means that it is actually the police that have been doing it, and that now he's going to instruct them to never do it again. And remember, Fred, you know, we have the situation of Justin Muturi, the former CS Attorney General, whose son was abducted. And when he approached the president about it, his son was released. So meaning that the president all along knew who was abducting people and who was supposed to be abducted, and if he ordered that anybody who is abducted be released, they can be released. So he's now telling us that he has been in control of the abductors, but now he will make sure that he instructs them not to abduct again. And so we have cause to be worried when the president, of course, admits this, and of course that lie that everybody has been released, while actually we have people that are still missing.
There's so many questions,
Fred,
so many questions,
all,
even some that he has raised.
Interject on that one. I think I want to disagree with my good friend, Senator John Nyotu here, on the picture you want to paint that this is a deliberate move. Remember, we still have a lot of unanswered questions on the River Yala extrajudicial killings and the deaths which were found there. There's much more. I think there's a mystery around these particular issues, because at some point, we caught some cases where people disappeared. They came up, and you look at the testaments after that. Could be some of them are politically driven, and you know, in politics, anything happens, especially when you want to pursue an agenda. But what we are saying all this, remember, we are talking about issues that touches on the family of people, on the people of people, you know, that emotionally is driving. And that's why I'm saying we've had there before leaders who are in denial, who deny everything. You understand? The question is this: there is an aspect that has happened, and I don't know where, but what I'm asking is it possible? Because always we as Kenyans, and especially leaders, leave alone Kenyans, we leaders have liked to use such scenario to perpetrate our own agenda. We ask questions when there is silence. When he speaks, we ask questions. So when are we going to stop to ask questions in a manner that we all together in cooperative, we cooperate together to ensure this thing?
You suggested we give the president time.
Yes, yes.
Time to do what? Because is there a process currently ongoing that will take us there?
Of course.
That we are waiting for?
Over and over time, this is what has been public domain, that the agencies are doing their work. And
it is a year later, Ruto. People died.
How many times have we rushed on issues? We end up having files that fail by the DPP's hand, or the fails at the court. I mean, how many times?
There are those who suggest.
So sometimes we push things to just satisfy the political feelings and end up failing, and we end up not giving justice to the victims.
There are those who suggest that probably we should constitute an independent commission of inquiry to actually examine this whole issue. And that statements like that, which the president made so casually, are actually perpetrating, or rather complicating the problem further. Do you think that probably that or a parliamentary led inquiry would help us get to the end of this?
Already Parliament, Senate and National Assembly have been in seats of this one. They've been in discussion all over the same. And the magnitude of the matter in terms of the criteria, I'm sure we still have trust in our agencies. The Kenyan agencies have been provided by the Constitution. Let them do their work.
If the police
the time we talked about forming independent inquiry or having an external, and then it shows that we are casting aspersion in our own agencies. Is that what is the implication?
If police are part of those who are accused of perpetrating these killings, just before you answer, allow me to invite Senator Tabitha Mutinda onto the set. Senator, karibu sana. It's good that you will be part of this discussion as well. Police are among those who've been accused of perpetrating the killings last year. When Ruto says we should wait for the same security agencies to investigate, it is a year later. Are you confident that they will actually do the job, or should we look elsewhere for that kind of inquiry?
Not at all, Fred, and before I answer that, let me tell my friend Ruto that the River Yala scenario is very different from the abductions of last year. Why? Because the abductions of last year have a particular pattern, that everyone that was abducted was a young person. And it came after the June 25 protest. So these abductions were directly related to the protests of June 25, And so this is very different from the situation of the bodies that were recovered from River Yala, because there was no particular pattern in that particular incident. Now, as to the issue of time, according to my friend Honorable Ruto, that we need time. The president did not promise that the perpetrators of this heinous act of abductions and the killings would be brought to book. He said it will not happen again. So he did not say the security agencies are investigating about it, and so they need time to come up with with the results of the investigation. He said that every other victim had been released to their families, and that it will never happen again. President Ruto did not promise that the perpetrators will be brought to book. To tell you that he knows, like I had submitted earlier, he knows whom the abductors were, and that is why nobody has ever been arrested. And the abductors were the police, of course, with directions to deal with those that, of course, did the protests of June 24th. So there is no matter of time. Actually, that's a creation of Honorable Ruto here, because the president did not say that they needed time to investigate. He actually did not promise that there were going to be any investigations to be carried out. He said it had been concluded according to him, and everybody abducted had gone back to their families, and it will not happen again. So I don't even see where the issue of time is coming in, because the president did not commit to any investigations. After all, and I know I'm repeating it, after all, every family now had their missing members back to their family. Okay. Yes.
Senator Mutinda, karibu sana.
Asante.
You found us right in the middle of this discussion. Yes. You've seen the front page of the Standard, name the abductors. And this is coming from the statement the president made on Monday this week. As Senator John Ruto says, the president simply was answering a question by a journalist. And many are saying that this was a very casual reaction to what happened last year. It was people died. Some people are still missing. But the fact that the government is yet to give us a comprehensive statement of the killings last year, and the president just keeps giving casual statements, when will we ever get closure on this matter?
Good morning once again. My apologies for coming late. And let me start by saying that this issue of abductions, especially for the families that are affected, it's something as leaders, personally from where I sit, it was a sad situation, and we really sympathized with the families at that particular time. And looking at the recent happenings and all these headlines from Standard, one, for me from where I sit, I am not surprised with the headlines of Standard. That is how they keep on highlighting and playing their game. When the president said that this will not happen again, he's a leader. What does that mean? I mean, what explanation and unbounding of that statement does someone need? It simply means clearly that this will not happen again means that, one, he's put measures to ensure that this does not reoccur. So anybody who participated in this particular abduction process and all that definitely are being brought to book or have been brought to book.
That's a question because...
I'm coming there.
Okay.
I'm coming there. I'm just trying to respond to the issue of that it will not happen again. He's communicated as the leader of the nation that this will not occur again. That simply means that he's not looking forward for even any kind of matter of abduction to ever happen in this country. That means, when you go further, then that means the people who participated in this particular heinous action, of course, will be taken to book, or are being taken to book, or have already been taken to book. Because the simple thing is that
Can
that
you back
has
that
not...
up, that they are actually being taken to book?
Yes.
It is a year later. Today is May 14th.
Correct.
This happened in June last year.
Yes.
Nothing has happened so far. Which process is this that we are waiting for?
Now, let me ask you.
That is going to happen.
Okay, fine. Let me ask you. How do you know that it has not happened? How do you know that the law has not taken its course? Which information do you have? Does it mean that the president will always be coming out each and every day and say, this is what you've done, these are the people who have been arrested, this is where the court case is and all that? Is it his responsibility to keep on coming out? Let me explain this. To keep on coming out and keep on explaining what the authorities are doing to the nitty-gritties. What he said, because what was so important, which we are very happy, is that these families were reunited with their loved one. That was very key. And at the same time, who abducted? It is not any common mwananchi. The authorities, it was perpetuated that the authorities are the ones who abducted these kids, or these, of course, these family members. So the government is dealing with its own government people. And the president, when he says very clearly that this will not happen again, it is very simple.
Is it enough for him to say it will not happen again? Because I think what you're missing here,
let me ask
the politics of it may come that probably it's those opposed to William Ruto who are saying this. Let's forget the politics.
Let me ask you.
Families lost their loved ones.
Correct.
Up till now, there are questions about some people who are still missing.
True.
The communication from even the administration, and not just the president, is very casual. Even the president himself is just reacting to a question by a journalist, or at a public rally, he said it will not happen again. We are still yet to get a comprehensive statement from the government on the killings that took place and the actions that the government is taking. That's the question. Which route will we take? And if at all you have any reasonable process that is being undertaken, can you share that with us, Ruto?
Well, I think we are not new to this, except that we just want to have we want to build a case of discussion and discourse as usual as Kenyans. But all I know is that all the tools and instruments of investigation always has been, even when a matter is there, you're told, please stay away from interfering with this one, because it's a question of getting detail and particulars so that the case is system proved in a manner that it's beyond any reasonable doubt when a matter is brought before justice system. So a question to me is, because we don't understand the complex, even me, I'm yet to know, I don't understand the complex that surrounded that one, other than what we want to speak about publicly, what suits us to speak about. Like my colleague senator would want to bang on this one, the president is a liar. It sounds well, it sounds nice to speak about politically, but issues that touches on a family, because here we have a value here called a family, a people, where this person is. I would rather say let us allow the instruments to do their work. Otherwise, when we put and discuss, it will come process from point A to point B, yes, to point C, and then we are subjecting and opening it to interference, and then later we end up getting an outcome that is distorted.
Isn't that tantamount to just sweeping everything under the rug? That we are not even sure if there's a process, if at all there's going to be any process or outcome after this.
Remember,
we're just saying let's not talk about it.
Remember, Kenya is a sovereign state, like any other country. And we cannot today quash and subject our systems casually. Because when you talk of casualness, is they also want to interpret some questions from you, even Fred. You want us to address issue casually, that it's the sensitivity in this matter. Remember, it is an act of crime. It's an act of crime. It has nothing else how to describe it.
There are those, Senator Nyoto, there are those who suggest that this matter should be subjected to a commission of inquiry, that the processes by the police, we cannot trust them, that we need to go further. Do you agree that we need a different process that can actually comb this matter and bring us to conclusion?
Yes, I do agree, but just before that, I think I want to comment on something about the submission by my colleague and friend, Senator Tabitha. But probably because she came a little late, I think the major question is, what will we say about the names that were produced yesterday of young people still missing? Because that is fundamental. It is not, I mean, before she came, we had submitted that when the president says that every other missing person had been reunited with their families, that yesterday that particular point was refuted and names were produced. So I don't know what my colleague Senator Tabitha would say about the names that were produced by human rights groups of people, young people who are still missing, in spite of the president promising that every other victim had been reunited with their families. And then the other thing would be that we are told that the president should tell us, although Senator Tabitha says that the president doesn't have to give the details of the actions that has been taken. Actually, we had submitted before she came that the president did not promise any action, and he did not indicate that there was any action that was taken or that will be taken, because according to him, this is a matter that is closed. Missing young people reunited with their families, and it will not happen again. There was no commitment as to action, and so I agree with you that this is a matter, because it's the greatest blot of this administration. It's the most embarrassing thing that this administration has done, abductions and killings, that this is a matter that should be investigated by an independent body, if possible, just like happened during the investigation relating to the death of Robert Ouko those many years back, or the investigation about the killing of Julie Ward. I think, for me, I would say, if it were going to be possible that we get, detectives from outside of here and completely have a very independent, commission, a very independent group of people investigating about this. Because, Fred, we are talking about over 60 young men and women killed, allegedly killed, by none other than the police for no other crime other than exercising their democratic right of demonstrating peaceably. Because we know none of them was caught with any firearm or any other, weapon. And so this is a very serious matter. This is not a matter that should be treated with the casualty, in the casual manner that the president is treating it and that the government is treating it. So I agree totally with those that suggest and propose that we should have an independent commission of inquiry, and if possible, that will be populated by people from outside of Kenya.
All right. Senator Mutinda, even the Houses of Parliament have been very reluctant to address this matter. I am aware that each house has a committee that is concerned with matters internal security. Yet, a year later, this discussion is not in the Houses of Parliament. How come?
No, when this took place in last year, especially us in Senate, we started this discussion. We had we had a motion where we discussed just the state of the nation within the House, having a conversation that was to bring peace, putting aside our political affiliations. And of course, we condemned, as leaders in the House, we condemned so much about these abductions. And we did that, that actually happened, and asked the state to ensure that the families that have been affected, their loved ones should be reunited with them. All that discussion happened from a neutral point of view, because it affected all of us. Remember when the Gen Z occupied Parliament, it affected all of us. It was not about Ruto is on this side, Mutinda is on this side. It was, for us as Kenyans. So when we got back, we had that discussion. Now, narrowing it to what my brother said, like the earlier discussion that has been there about the names that the activists have said, their names that are still missing. Their loved ones are still missing. Let me say this. You see, as I've always said, the president is always provided with reports. He's still a Kenyan. He wouldn't know who is missing, who's not missing. And it is not wrong for them to have come out and expressed that still these people have not been reunited with their loved ones. There's nothing wrong with that. And it's until that point that we also get to know that there are people who have also not been reunited with their loved one, which of course brings questions. Where are they? Something needs to be done for them also to be reunited with their families, because the president is normally given the reports from where he sits. He will not be the one going to look at where this happened and all. He's definitely provided with the report. From the report that he has been provided, of course, the information will indicate that all the people who had been reported. Remember, for that to happen, the report has to be placed, of course, in the police and all that, investigations and everything. And if the report that he has is that all the people who had been abducted and all that have been reunited, we lost some because some died, some have already been buried, a sad situation. But just to summarize is that there's nothing wrong for the people who have not been reunited for them to also get an opportunity to get an explanation. So what is important is now that next step of who are these people, where are they, can they be reunited? That information also needs to come out. The president boldly, from the question of the journalist, from the newspaper, he says he acknowledged state-sponsored killings, as the paper said, if that is what he responded. This is leadership. The president is not the kind of who's like, I didn't do this. If there's a problem, he's acknowledging that this happened. And that's why he says it will not happen again. Because we also, even when the documentary was aired by BBC, we also, not William Ruto was there holding guns and everything. It is the security forces that are state that were there. He did not authorize anybody to
if we may forget William Ruto for a moment.
No, you see, the problem
let's not
that
make
we
it
are
about
having,
the president. He made a statement. Me, I'm talking about the killings.
As much as he made a statement, there's something that we don't want to acknowledge. And that's why we mess this country up. We politicize everything completely. The president was not in what do you call, in Parliament at that particular point. But as the head of state, he has communicated about the people who have been reunited with their loved. What does that mean? That means, one, in Dimuli, that there has been a process whereby this data was being collected. For him to be given that report, for him to communicate and say, these are the people who have been reunited. There has been a process. There has been verification and confirmations and things like that.
That process is what I'm looking for.
That has taken place. Because
Senator, you say it is discussed even in Parliament.
Just hold on. We discussed
any discussion
in
Parliament, any substantive discussion in Parliament, even a motion, produces a report at the end.
Correct.
Is there any such document that you can talk about?
There's no report in regards to the specific people who were abducted. The report that is there that I've said we discussed was putting the nation at a neutral point because there was a lot of agitation, a lot of anger, a lot of fear and all that. But my point is, for the president to communicate that the people who had been abducted have been reunited with their loved one, that means he has been given a report that says so-and-so has been reunited because these are the people who had been reported. So there has been a process that took place. And further down the line, the president says, in that regard, this shall not happen again.
There's a report that is out, and it's a UN human rights report on Kenya. It was already presented at the Council in Geneva earlier this month. By 9th of May, it had been presented there. Don't you think that that is the kind of approach that even our Houses of Parliament should have taken on this matter? That investigation, scrutiny, inquiry is done, and a report is produced at the end, giving recommendations and the way forward?
Well, other than the normal motions that goes in the flow of the House at specific or a given matter that has been invited for that particular discussion, the best discussion that can bring conclusion is what is carried with evidence. And most of these are sensitive evidence would require specialized units to undertake this. And that's why I consistently say that we have to appreciate that as a sovereign country, we have our own independent tools to work around it. And such reports are very critical if it is so conclusive. And that's why I want to appreciate the president speaking by saying it will not happen. That means he's taking a position that he's appreciating this as something has happened that is not right, even as at this point. But then he's futuristic, giving hope and a sense of control on anything that touches on a Kenyan family. But it is very critical that finally, and I agree with you, Fred, and every other Kenyan, that we need this report. Even for Mount Saga as a leader, I need this report so that I take the right position.
Don't you think Parliament has a role in that? If we may forget the president for a while now.
Yes, what I'm saying. But again,
how come there's no problem?
Parliament is a house of records. The Parliament is a house of records, and that's why it is very critical for this particular fact-founded
Is there any current
evidence,
progress in Parliament, any process in Parliament on this matter? Is there any
it has to
discussion
be
even before the
introduced.
committee?
Upon conclusion, it had to be introduced to the floor of the House.
It is
Other than the reactionary motions, which we had an adjournment motion. We discussed about it as we were discussing all the other issues around there. But you see, at that point, that discussion calls upon the agencies to take action. And now we have to allow those agencies to take actions. And then now that reports are made public, it is scrutinized, it is subjected to the process of Parliament, and then the conclusion on either one action hence to be undertaken. And part of the action is probably the people in responsibility. Action should be recommended, you see, because this is House of Representation. So we allow to have a document to be discussed. So what we need to call upon is speedily conclusion of this particular issue. We want to agree with the families affected, the activists who are coming forward to represent the needs of the people. We want to join hands together because this is a good process. In fact, I don't see anywhere we disagree with agencies in this paper that have come out to speak about it. It's only that a question of how are we going to conclude it in the shortest time possible.
And no one has given me any process that's happening towards it.
Because sometimes we can charm these things, make it sweetness by politicizing it, hitting on each other, hitting on our opponents, using it as a campaign tool for 2027. In the long run, who is going to give a factual foundation that is going to sort and settle the feelings of the affected?
Let's go back to the genesis of this problem.
Can we get a factual evidence,
and
we forget away our political feelings.
Without what you've said, the finality, a document or a report that you can work with, chances are that the same could be repeated. Yes? The genesis of this issue was discussions and debate around the Finance Bill 2024. Yes? We are around the same period, a year later. We still do not have a conclusive report on what happened last year. Chances are it could happen again this year. Do you agree, Senator, that even the Houses of Parliament have been too reluctant and too slow to attend to this matter?
Fred, I think Senator Mutinda may have missed it, but there is a statement that was raised by Senator S. Okenyori in the Senate about these killings. And as happens in Parliament, it's that once a statement about a particular issue has been raised, then the Speaker refers the same to the relevant committee. I want to imagine, I believe that this particular statement by Senator S. Okenyori was referred to the Committee on National Security, but I've not heard of anything that has come from that particular committee. And of course, for obvious reasons, that this is something, and I remember the same senator telling me that some people were very mad with her for raising that particular statement, and of course, so I imagine that this statement was sat on in quotes, because what then such a statement brings out is that when this matter gets to the relevant committee of the House, then the committee has the mandate, has the power to invite any security agency or all the security agencies to come and answer the questions like the ones we are asking here. And then after that, compile a report and make recommendations. So I want to submit that yes, in the Senate, this matter was raised. But then I think we should follow with the Committee on National Security to see how far it has gone with it. But I suspect...
If I told there to be any action from the Senate, would it have waited this long, a year later, and no action?
Yes, you know there are many problems with Parliament, especially where it is not completely independent. And so sometimes a matter, you know what I mean by saying you can see it on a particular job, you know, and not do it because, and of course, you'll get very many other excuses that, for example, you know, the particular office invited was not available, or there were other statements that had been brought earlier, and so time has not been sufficient to deal with it. So there are all manner of excuses, especially when you do not want to do something. And so it is not like Parliament is asleep. It's like, you know, the legislators are very active. But then the institution of Parliament and the way Parliament is constituted and the fact that, of course, now anything that is not pro-government of course, may not see light of day, because it's about numbers at the end of it. And so I think that is a problem. But before I end, allow me to comment again about my colleague, Senator Tabitha's submission, that the president, when I asked her, she responds about the names that were mentioned yesterday. She says the president may not know that there are some acts on the information, so far received, may not know that there were others missing. And that is why then you are saying that the president is treating it in a casual manner. The president cannot come and, and make a submission, and then later Senator Tabitha tells us that, as at the time the president was saying that every other missing person had been reunited with their families, the president did not know, had not received information that there were still some others. This is the president of the Republic of Kenya. He should give a conclusive statement. We cannot allow the president to escape with, by the time I was saying that, I did not know that there were still some others. He said that every other missing person had been reunited with their families.
Senator.
And so that is something that I think we should not take. The other thing is, when you say that the president, of course, did not order these killings, I mean, there are very many questions that we can ask Fred. And one of them is, you'll get your time, Ruto. One of them is, most of this, and it is there in public domain, most of these young men and women that were abducted and killed were not abducted on the 25th of June. Most of them were followed home and to other places, and we saw, images of them being captured. So this is something. This is something that was planned.
Okay.
That go for these people.
Listening to my good friend Senator Nyoto is very persistent on that point of the issue of numbers. Maybe I would use this moment to request him, could he be having further information on exactly what is the number of victims on this matter, so that what the president is saying is contrast to exact numbers. Because otherwise, this could be a debate that will never end. The president saying that the families have been united with their loved ones who are fall a victim of this matter. But then we are seeing further information saying, no, the president was wrong. So then I don't know, and I should be honest on this. Could Senator Nyoto tell us exactly, in terms of quantum?
Yes.
Exactly.
And we'll come back to Senator Nyoto to respond to that, but now Senator Mutinda.
Asante. My colleague, my good friend from the National Assembly, Honorable Ruto, said it clearly when I came and I was listening to him. He said, now, this is a narrative that is being used currently politically for the opposition to get a subject matter to take down. Let me start from where you've really been asking us, all of us, a very critical question. Did it have to take 1 year? What have we done, or what did we do as members of parliament? Truth be told, both sides, and this is where, as a leader, you need to take responsibility. We did not dig further. He also acknowledges that our colleague, one of the senators, Senator Esi, brought about this statement. But I think the question you're asking is that what did we do? What further? But it is correct to say that there is that procedure, as he explains. In every committee, when it is remitted to a specific committee, then the process starts. So that now there's a report. Mm-hmm. And as a House of Records, that report is the one that has recommendations. Now, these recommendations are also given by the security agencies. For this matter, this is a security matter. Mm-hmm. So we did not really probably, dig deeper, because you see it caught us off guard, and the whole shock of it and all that. But two wrongs don't make a right. We are not acknowledging that we should have just really sort of sat back. But that does not mean that the state security agencies have not been, looking at these reports and giving guidelines. And that is why today, as we speak, we are speaking and discussing when the head of state has said that this will not happen again. Why? because he has been given a report. That report came from somewhere. For him to have said that these persons have been reunited, he did not wake up to say they have been reunited. Now, I've had my colleague, Senator Nyotu, talk about two things. The president ordered the killings. Very sad, completely. As I've said, this thing affected us as leaders. All the 349 MPs, all the 67 senators in that house. We were running helter-skelter for our lives. They did not come for this, they just came for all of us. To say that he ordered, that is defamation in the first place, that is incrimination in the second place. And that is something that actually as a leader he should withdraw with immediate effect. Because you cannot state that the head of state ordered killings. That is completely out of order. Now, Honorable Ruto has requested a very simple request, which I second. And I request Senator Nyotu to just tell us the data that he has, to indicate and say the report that they have, the data that they have for the abductions that were done were for, case example, 100 young people, 250, 15, whatever the number. And the ones that have been united according to the report, the data that he has, for example, is X number. So this number is missing. What does the president really benefit today if truly there is a number that is still abducted somewhere? How does that benefit him? When he clearly says that I want to bring this to end. Okay. Which president, we are politicians, which politician really would work best with anything to do with murder, with anything to do with abduction, because that is life. Okay. That is, those are areas as politicians we are normally very careful. So it would be fair for that. Number two, just kidogo. He earlier talked about setting a commission, an independent commission of inquiry. 1 year down the line. Now that Parliament has done nothing and you've admitted that. 1 year down the line, okay? If the agencies are doing what they're supposed to do, what different will the commission do? At the same time, remember, we are facing the issue of the IEBC today, whereby 2 candidates' names had been proposed. What has happened at the opposition? So what will be so unique, because I heard him talk about then it should be people who have come from, I don't know, out of this country and things like that. And that's where, first of all, when that is put in place, that commission of inquiry, the next thing is that money is being wasted. Why do you have to get international people? How much are they being paid? We want to see the budget. We want to see how much is being spent. That is number one. Number two, whoever comes, even when they come genuinely, even they've probably been appointed either locally or internationally, definitely the opposition takes it. They're asking, for example, why is Indimuli the one who's there? He's going to give a report that favors the government. So already there is a formed mind all the time, which we are not achieving. So as Parliament, we are acknowledging there was a gap. There's no problem. Yes, there was some. But I'm appreciating the fact that where we are today, because what is important is that those families to be reunited with their loved ones. And if there's anybody whose member of family has not been reunited, to use the relevant channel so that those people can be brought back to their families.
Just something, one more, because I like what...
It's actually going to be the time.
One thing, I like what Senators put across on the character of the president. And I would want to remind Kenyans on the last year finance bill. You remember when there was chance that reject finance bill. Of course, I sit in the Committee of Finance and National Planning, where we process the bill to do the public participation. And if you look at the report that actually culminated into approval of the finance bill, had actually taken into consideration the concerns of Kenyans. But of course, for political reasons, the only person who rejected, who agreed with the finance bill, is the president. Because emotionally, listen, he's the only person who rejected.
Correct.
After us approving in Parliament, it was taken to him for assent. But he said, looking at the situation of the country, I'm not ready to let the country go down, young souls being killed just because of confusion on this matter. Correct. I'd rather reject it That is a character in that person.
Leadership.
Remember, he needed that finance bill more than anybody else because he needed to finance his agenda that he had already provided in the estimate. And after that, on what followed, he also proposed an amendment, that supplementary one, to cut down on every other cost, on every other priority areas. Him as a chair of the cabinet had approved for the purpose of one, the rejected finance bill.
Okay.
So if you want to talk about his character, as much as we would wish to assassinate, that is the person and the art he has. He's not an heartless person. He's a person who listens and he feels. And for him to speak up, and remember, this was a random question anyway. Yeah. In fact, whatever we are being printed here is as a result of us trying to interpret the lips from the president. But it was a random question and he had to respond because at the magnitude of that question, of course I was not there. Even if you ask a question and you on clearing open camera, he had to give an assurance because he stressed much on giving an assurance. So he was giving an assurance that I'm seized of the matter and as the president of the Republic of Kenya. So I don't know why we also want to build a case. We are building a national discourse. So can he keep silent in everything? Should we expect the president, when a question comes across, he keeps silent, he keeps mum to avoid national discourse like this?
Okay.
So that's our character as Kenyans.
Final word on this.
I just want to, they have asked a few questions.
Yes.
They have challenged me to produce numbers. I don't think, unless they were not very keen on what I was saying, I don't think I've talked about numbers. I have kept talking about the names that their human rights organizations brought yesterday. It's not about the numbers. It's about specific names. That is what I'm talking about.
What is the cut-off level?
Not about, you'll get your time.
What is the cut-off level?
So it's about those names. Mm-hmm. So they cannot tell me to produce the numbers that were abducted and those that have been released to their families. There are names that have been mentioned, and that is what they should respond to. My colleague, Senator Tabitha, says that I should apologize for saying that the president ordered the killings. I don't think I say the president ordered the killings. All I say is these particular abductees were not abducted on 25th of June. Most of them were followed to their homes and to other places, and that is in public domain, meaning that there must have been, a plan. Of course, approved by, I want to believe, the National Security Committee, which the president chairs. Because these people, these young people were not caught during, or abducted in the course of the demos. They were followed later and abducted, and those reports are there, nobody doesn't know. So meaning, abducted and some of them killed, meaning that there was a deliberate plan. Of course, and I want to put it to them, that of course these had been approved by the National Security Committee, which the president chairs. And then when Senator Tabitha says that how does the president benefit from a Kenyan being abducted, I don't think that was the subject matter. The subject matter was that the president is casual about a very serious thing, and that the president lied about a very serious thing. Lied in the sense that there are names that were produced yesterday in spite of him or after him saying that everybody had been reunited with their families. So when you say what difference would the commission of inquiry make from what has been out here? And why would we bring in people from out there? History is anything to go by. You know that Judge Kriegler from South Africa, when he came after 2007, post-election violence, he was able to confront the elephant in the room then, about transparency, fairness, and what have you, about elections. And that is when, we were able to adopt a very good system, and I talked about it in the Senate yesterday, a very good system where the election ends at the polling station because, votes are counted there, And so when it's about that other person from out there, you cannot intimidate this person. You cannot compromise compromise this person, because other people, there are people out there who have values. We also have people with values here, of course, but then there are very many compromises or threats. So I would want to submit that, and Senator Tabitha said that, this is a narrative now by the opposition just to paint the government in a bad way. I mean, this discussion is coming from an answer that the president, gave. It is not a creation of the opposition. And just to remind her, we do not have opposition in Kenya today. We only have the majority side and the minority side.
Right.
So it's not a creation of the opposition.
Senator Mutinda, I know you would want to respond to this, but I beg that we move this discussion forward. We spent so much time on it.
Yeah, let me just use just a few seconds on it, and thank you so much. First of all, I wanted to say that Standard newspaper, we are never surprised. Monday to Sunday, the headlines are always negating government. It's not, because you compare that and you compare what is on the Nation newspaper today, the path for senior high schools, total different discussions.
Are you saying we should not be having this discussion?
I'm not saying we should not be having the discussion. I'm saying the headlines of Standard for the last, from I don't know what, they have been so negative. There's nothing that comes out that is a bit neutral, like as you compare to the Nation newspaper. So it's not a surprise, first of all. Second of all, just to mention a few things, this is also a house of record, because whatever we say, of course, is in the record. And Senator Nyotu has said his words. It can be retrieved. He has talked about how the president ordered the killings. But now I just wanted to touch on this issue of the numbers, that he's retracting and said he did not talk about numbers. In Dimuli, when someone asked how many people are in this room, we are 7 people. How do you know you're 7 people? We'll give the names and say number 1 in Dimuli, Senator Mutinda, Senator Nyu, like that. Those are numbers. Those are 7 people. Those with their names. People are by name. So it is either that name, those names that he's saying, and he's a mwalimu of Swahili, a mwalimu that I really respect, and he understands the simple question that we're talking about. And that is what we said, he should be able to just give, he should just be able to give numbers. Numbers are the names, there's no difference, which is not in a position to give. Number 2, if I insist, if there are people who are still affected, that their loved ones have not been reunited, it is our wish, it is our prayer, that the process is fastened, such that their people are reunited with them. It's as simple as that. And the issue of the presidency, it is the chair of the Security Committee. He further says, these abductions were done after and all that. He says, of course, he uses the word of course, that that was approved. What was approved? The abductions were approved. He's just still rotating within that process, which is so misleading and which is misleading Kenya.
I want us to move this conversation.
There's something you say there. Look at this discussion. It has taken us almost an hour.
Yes.
Why? Because of a headline. It has taken us,
but
this
is
is an editor's, look at this, an editor's opinion. It has taken us an hour. Look at this, there's another editor here who has given. So what I'm saying
don't give attention to this.
Fred, well, I agree, and I want to support my sister by saying, the question is, even if today the government of Kenya gives us a number that there was 20 abductees and they have been returned to families, then another one tomorrow said, no, they are still others here. The question is, when will we have the last count?
Yes.
What is the cutoff?
So
thank you so much. I think I don't want to stress on that much, but I wanted to say,
we've come back to the very question I asked.
We are in a country of possibilities. Even if today a number is given, what is the cutoff?
Which process will bring us to that? And that was a question I don't think I've had an answer.
The same process.
But now you can proceed.
Let me move on, and this is still linked to this, the issue of the Finance Bill 2025. The National Assembly has already invited views from members of the public on this issue beginning this week up until the end of this month. The Finance Bill 2024 was a bone of contention which led to all these killings and the kind of upheaval that we saw last year. The Senator Mutinda, has admitted that Parliament has been reluctant and that they've not undertaken any process. Part of what we remember is that on June 25th, the biggest casualty were the Houses of Parliament. The protesters were protesting against actions by parliamentarians. The National Assembly and even the Senate have not found it fit to even talk about this issue, the fact that the precincts of Parliament were breached and that parliamentarians had to scatter for their own lives. Now, what informs us that things are going to be different this time round without even a parliamentary process to probe what happened and how to adjust?
First of all, you will appreciate, and I want to say for record purpose, it was an unprecedented event, scary and traumatizing to see what happened, an attack on Parliament last year on 25th June, which I wish not to experience that an action thereafter. And in any case, again, remember, these are the institutions that are provided by the Constitution to ensure proper governance is in place for the people of Kenya. But that on said aside, this is the Constitution has laid grounds on how the budget estimates expenditure is brought to the floor of the House by 30th April on the timelines by the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury, together with revenue-raising measures. And when you hear revenue-raising measures, that is finance bill, that you put an expenditure and then also support by saying, okay, fine, you're giving us an expenditure limit of, say, 4 trillion. How are you intending to finance it? And that's why finance bill comes in, especially to give the additional area of gray areas that the Treasury is seeking to adjust and ensure that it increases the revenues. But the biggest issue here, and I want to invite Kenyans, for the first time, I think this single finance bill sprouted and Kenyans got to know there's something called finance bill. There before, engagement was so low. I remember 2022, 2023, I participated. And if you look at the Kenyans' participation was very low. But unlike this one, how it started, how it spin around. And you remember at those times, we were receiving messages. Certain people, anonymous people, that were now text, reject finance bill because of this crowd. Reject finance bill because it's going to generate land rates, taxing on land, which was not there in all the 56. Actually, it was around 58 clauses, 56, and 2 additional clauses. It meant around 58, which I myself sat in the committee. What I'm asking Kenyans is, now that we know there's something called finance bill, I want to invite them for public engagement. Well, we have been asking the executive to do their work. Remember, Parliament is just going to legislate. The real owners of the finance bill is the National Treasury and the executive. And I want to appreciate Cabinet Secretary. For the first time the other day, he went out of his office and he walked to Jivanjikatan, only to find a finance bill was already being discussed, which has not been brought by National Treasury to the National Assembly, which indeed it was brought the other week. It was tabled in the floor of the House. Now it's a public document that we invite public view. So calendar has been tabled. Parliament has invited from next week. We will be engaging public hearings. I want to ask the Kenyans to submit, to look at it critically, the bill, the proposed bill, clause by clause. Look at areas. I've already looked at it previously. I look at areas even of concern to me on the issue of VAT, deletion of some provisions in second schedule, which is iterated, lifting it to first schedule, which is exempted. What is the impact on it? These are the issues that we need to discuss. What is in the bill, not what is outside the bill, because what banned the country, if you look at the messaging, was totally...
The concern was that public participation was conducted last year, but that public views were not taken into account. Hence,
and that is why I'm asking you, how different Fred, and I'm sure all of you, we work together. I think we were doing that till dawn. And if you, up to now, have you retrieved the report of Finance Committee, which actually culminated into the finance bill approval? Have you looked at it? The issue of car tax, the issue of digital taxes, which was affecting the youth. Have you looked at that report? Other than what went fire in the whole space, social media space, X, which was totally not in the report that informed the committee stage of the approval, clause by clause. Okay. If you look at that report, it took up, look at the agencies that participate, stakeholders who came like ISPAC, like Association of Manufacturers. If you look at them, concerns on the issue of eco-levy, where it was affecting sanitary towels for our girls, it was affecting the cost issues to do with excise duty on imported raw materials, edible oil. Some of the issues were trying to say, okay, how much are we going to export our labor? When are we going to introduce back our industrialization. If you look at that report, and it is there for record purpose, I would have wished to invite that, look at the report of the committee, because it's a product of public participation. But nobody gave that space, even in the floor of the House. Remember the opposition? Those finally who came running back to the House upon the attack, they were chanting, reject the finance bill, even when the chairman was reading out clause by clause and what the committee has recommended and what it was being approved. Nobody even was listening, because we had taken it politically. To the extent we were banning, we were inciting the feelings of Kenyans. By the time they are coming, people thought the worst was happening. But if you keenly look at that report, I would want to ask Kenyans, please participate, submit your memorandums, have your discussion. We will be coming out there. We will be listening to each and every person. Of course, I want to give a good report that this particular finance bill, unlike even last year, is less of most challenges. I see an area of invite issues to do with data protection. That is a gray area, which I know we are going to have a discussion. Okay. Yes, and the issues to do with VAT.
Senator Nyoto, do you feel confident that this time around the process will be different? The kind of public confidence in both houses of parliament is, I think, is at its lowest as we speak.
Yeah, I think without actually doing hair splitting about last year's finance bill, Fred, I think the issue was trust. I mean, the things that preceded, the presentation and the voting for this particular bill, you remember the president saying, I want to see any member of parliament who will not vote for this bill. And that is, he said that in public. And so Kenyans were like, so it is the president's finance bill. And don't forget, this is the president who had introduced so many taxes when he came in. And so when he was seen to be pushing for this particular finance bill, in fact, to be like forcing members of the national, coercing them to vote for the bill, then I think that is why there was a lot of agitation. And I agree with Honorable Ruto, because that time, of course, I used to be invited to PGs. I remember that it was brought in one Kwanza PG, and people gave recommendations, and it is true that we were agreeable that most of the proposals in the original finance bill, which was very bad, that we removed them, so. But by this time already, Kenyans were poisoned, and especially by the stance that the president was taking about this finance bill. And so I think it's this year. To be fair, I have not seen that grandstanding by the president about the finance bill. Of course, he learned last year, and he learned that power belongs to the people. Remember, had it not been for Raila Amolo Odinga, the president would have been removed from office by the Gen Zs because of this finance bill, and because he learned his lessons. That's why you can see there is no grandstanding. And I want to think and believe
has Parliament learned the lesson? Forget about
I'm talking about grandstanding and appearing like he's the one driving finance bill, like it is his personal, it's about his personal interest, because that is what brought all these problems. And I am telling you, I agree that we had agreed on some very progressive changes in the finance bill in State House during a PG, and so I do not expect those riots this year, but there are concerns, Fred, because last evening there was news that there is a very big budget cut on from education, and we have not had time to look at the papers whether they have those story that story that actually even the national examinations have not been catered for in the budget, and it is unclear whether parents will be forced to pay for the national examinations. And so there are challenges. There are many sectors whose budgets have been cut. And so these are things that we should talk about, because all of us want a country that is stable. Nobody would want to see, the kind of situation that we witnessed last year, unless you are, a sadist and you are not patriotic. And so I want to believe that this particular finance bill will be, you know, friendly to Kenyans, will be presented in a friendly way that will not see people talking like it has to pass regardless, and that most importantly, that the views of the members of the public will be taken into account and the necessary changes you know, captured in the final finance bill that will be presented to the National Assembly.
Senator Mutinda.
Before I forget, Senator Ruto has talked about the issue of education, that there was something on the news yesterday in regards to budget cuts, and he's wondering if parents will pay for exams. Indimuli, kindly invite the Minister for Education or the Chair for Education Committee, both houses, for that clarity. We do not want to allow members of the opposition to try and drive a narrative that is not maybe well understood. It would be fair from where you sit, we also get that clarity so that it does not mislead. I'm just saying clarity. There's nothing wrong requesting that you give them a platform. It's an extension of a request. Now, back to the questions, the issue of the finance bill. Let me start from what really caused the problem. What caused the problem was first the issue of opulence. There are members of parliament who brought about opulence, which angered Kenyans. And then further to that, when finance bill was introduced because of the different taxes that were in place, the feeling was you want to keep on taxing us and taking the money, and we've seen how, you know, and that is what really brought about the whole agitation, and these things have changed. This opulence has really completely gone down. And now, to where we are, what is different today as far as the issue of finance bill? One is that the Committee of Finance, I'm actually the Vice Chair of Finance and Budget in Senate, but I'm happy because the Committee of Finance in the National Assembly, whom we work very closely with, sometimes we have joint committee meetings and all that depending on the matter. They've already started on the public participation. I think they've selected about 11 counties. I note that they have not selected, from what I hear, Nairobi County. It will be good that you also consider, because this is where we have a bigger number of people in terms of accessibility and all that, so that they can continue, and you broaden that so that Kenyans can continue giving their views. So what is different is that there is a bigger opportunity for that information and for public participation for Kenyans to give their views. But what also brought issues were the basic commodities, the essential commodities that Kenyans felt that they had been taxed so much. But right now, as we speak, unga, milk, sugar, cooking oil are all zero rated. And I think my colleague member can confirm to you that medicine also, that right now there is no issue of tax, because I've partially discussed with them and I'm familiar with some of these issues, and also what he has said in terms of the zero rating and the exemption. There is so much of that in this current finance bill. But what is important is more communication and more highlighting. And Kenyans, let us communicate, bring out. If there's any concern, if an opposition member wants to mislead the public, let us, have the discussion, and let the truth and the relevant members who are sitting in that committee be given an opportunity to actually bring out and to actually explain. Now, two things very quickly. Senator Ruto talks about that the president went to the public and stated, I want to see members who will not vote. Like, for seriousness, with all due respect, surely. That is another allegation now from the same senator, stating that the president stood on. If this president had stood on any public, today, even right now, you'll be playing that clip right now as we speak. But because
if you give us time, we can look for it. Because
please do. Thank you so much.
Right now, unfortunately, we only have like 9 minutes.
No. You can still. You are normally very smart and very fast. The media normally very on point. If there's any clip that Dr. William Samoei Ruto stated that if any member of parliament does not vote for this bill, we will deal with them. If he stood on public and stated that, let that be played. Hata kama sisa, you can play later. Number 2, PGs. Dr. William Ruto is the president who has worked closely with members of parliament by inviting them and having discussions with them as the leaders, if there are any issues, so that he is able to bring out, they are able to also share their opinions. And we went for that PG, and he took us through very well, and it made sense. Things, were making sense because we had to collect revenue, as my good friend, Honorable Ruto, has mentioned. So the PG was that nobody was forced. The president did not say you have to vote. the president communicated and talked about the concerns that had been raised. This communication had started earlier. And I'm happy that my brother remembers that we had that PG to discuss the issue of finance bill, meaning that he had involved leaders in discussion to take them through and explain the issues that had been raised. Number three, Senator Ruto talked about something that he said, you know, this finance bill, of course, brought a lot of issues. Then, in the same government that we were so together, people who are still in the same government then were poisoning from inside. They poisoned the Gen Z to come out. The same people we sat with, the same people we discussed with, the same people who had intel from inside, they came out in the dark and poisoned. So when we were moving like this, there were others who were moving behind. And today it is evident. And that is what also caused some of these problems at that particular time. Because if today, with the Honorable Ruto, because we are in the same coalition, if we are moving like this, and me are moving forward and he's moving backwards, definitely we will distort. It will be chaotic. It will be problematic. And these are the results that will be found. So that is why Dr. William Ruto has always opened doors for members of Parliament in State House to be able to discuss. As early as yesterday, we left there at almost 8 p.m.
Discussing the finance bill?
No, we are from the region of the Eastern region, discussing the matters of development of Ukambani region. Why? Because it involves everybody. What is your opinion? This is how we want to move forward. Is this the priority? Should we wait? And things like that. Okay. You see, that is a president of inclusivity.
Because of time, I'll give each of you 3 minutes for your final submissions. You can choose.
And as I put my submission, I just also, I've had you consistently asking, has the Parliament learned a lesson? And then it begs me a question and a concern. What did Parliament do wrong? Why is Parliament wrong? Which lesson was Parliament supposed to learn?
The reason I asked that, even as you respond, is that the Gen Zs or the protesters did not go to State House. They came to Parliament.
Yes.
They had an issue with Parliament.
That's where the finance bill was.
Yes,
but
they
the
had
question,
an issue with Parliament.
Have you evaluated what the push of GNC in terms of the content and exactly what was in the flow of the House?
Opulence.
Of course, not even the driver factor is not what Senator is saying that the president made a public. The issue was opulence, and which I agree. Yes. It was, we have some characters of leaders, even in our own side, that doesn't portray the provision of Chapter 6 and what the Constitution talks about, integrity and the way you carry yourself in a manner that you confer confidence upon the people you lead, you know. And I know Kenyans, the young people felt like we are jobless, and there are people here, we see the way they conduct somebody saying, you know, I don't want to paraphrase what happened because I've not come here to attack on somebody's character, but generally that was the voice. But if you look at the messaging, like I told you, no clause spoke about the land issue, not even one clause. It was issues to do with VAT. It was issues to do with excise duty. It was issues to do with tax administration. It was issues to do with tax procedures. 4 elements of taxes. Nothing was to do with the subject of the issue of land. The issue of environmental taxes, which was ego levy, it was the 5th element that came in. And if you, during stakeholder engagement, we would see the way the stakeholders were fighting against it. Why? Because it was going to rope into their abnormal profit margin, where the country is saying, we want to look at the positive effects of this particular containers you are using. Can we provide a mechanism of calling it back or giving a latitude to the agencies on how to dispose them because of careless management, especially the plastic items? And we are told, I'm not sure, but we are told part of the finances of the motivation around that issue what was affected. But nonetheless to say, we listen to Kenyans, especially the girls who came and spoke their story, and we felt, yes, we want to change as country. We want to go and we want to industrialize our nation. We want to produce our own demands in the country. We want to supply our own consumables in our own country and retain the value of employment. But nonetheless to say, totally, whatever it was being prosecuted in SpaceX was totally toxic, ill-informed, and you would see the politics about it. That is why It was in the process of Parliament that was happening. And if you look at even our own colleagues inside, some of our colleagues who would wake up, come out from the floor of the House, and they would go meet them. Others were saying, open up the gate for them to come in. The others they never gave time for the normal Parliament procedures to run against the standing orders, chanting. The unfortunate part is that when the attack came in, it never spared. Everyone was affected in Parliament. And that's the day we learned we need to protect ourselves as Parliament and prosecute our issues. Lastly, I just want to conclude by asking Kenyans, please participate in this year's finance bill. We cannot have as demand, like what my colleague is asking about education. That is a demand sector. Without a supply, we must have a balance. Okay. If we want to increase our demand, we must also provide a supply to it. But so that we make a very sound laws, because we make laws for people, not for machines, not for equipments, not for space, for the people of Kenya. I want to ask Kenyans, please help us make the sound laws that is going to support progress and development of the nation by participating. The calendar is out, read out. It is a very simple bill. There's very few less clauses this time around. In fact, most of the clauses are touching on the employee benefits of the employee for Kenyan and small issues. Please, we invite your contributions. Thank you so much.
And I know we're almost out of time, but I'm told that there's a clip that we found of the president talking about the finance bill 2024. Let's listen to it and see if at all it's the one we were referring to.
Sijui kama tunaelewana jameni. Tuko pamoja? Tuko pamoja? Ndio mimi nilisema mimi nangojea kuangalia mtu ambaye anasema anataka watu yake waishi kwa salamu. Anataka vijana ambao wamemsaidia akapata ajira waendelee kuhangaika barabarani wasipate ajira. I am looking, huyo mtu sijui anakaa namna gani. Na sijui kichwa yake ni mzuri ama iko kombo kiasi gani. Ama ni aje ndugu zangu? Surely. Na nimesema vile vile katika hii budget tumesema vijana wetu ambao wanatoka TVET, tunataka vijana waje wafanye kazi. Tumesema hata furniture. Hii furniture inatengenezwa hapa Roysambu. Kuna watu wengine wanaenda kununua furniture China, wanaenda kununua furniture Marekani, sijui wanaenda kununua hati kitanda. Na hii kiti ya kukalia hapa unaenda kununua Marekani, na tuko na vijana hapa wanaweza kutengeneza furniture.
I'm sure there's another clip there, but anyway, Senator, you're too.
Thank you. I'll be very fast. I want to ask my friend, because I have a lot of respect, and she's my very good friend, Senator Tabitha Mutinda. There are things that you allege here, and you display your ignorance. There is that clip, and I'm also going to look for it. And when I come back here, I'm going to present it. The president saying specifically, "Mi nagojea kuona mjumbe ambaye hatapigia hii finance bill." It is there. The other thing that I want to ask her, yesterday the PS Basic Education appeared before the Education Committee in the National Assembly, and that is where the issue of non-allocation to exams, national exams, was there. So Tabitha should just admit that she was not able to see that part of the news and not to say that I'm alleging, because this is something that happened. She's telling you to invite the chair, the Education Committee. It happened yesterday in Parliament before the chair, National Assembly Committee on Education. And so it's important, because you don't have to get all the pieces of news. It's important that you admit you don't have that information and not allege that people are alleging, because it is there. Otherwise, it embarrasses somebody when you seem to be, to be denying something that is in public domain. And having said that, the other very miserable argument that I've had, and I have heard my friend Tabitha, repeat it, is that the Gen Zs were poisoned by people who are in the government. Surely, I mean, in Mombasa, in Nakuru, in Nairobi, in Kisumu, everywhere, including rural towns. And even anybody poisoned Gen Zs and incited them to do this June 25, 2024, protests. I mean, where was the National Intelligence Service all this time as this particular person or group of people were planning about this? You know, we need to make arguments that do not, you know, portray us as people who are just here to defend maybe a particular side of the political divide. In fact, because some of these things are you just need to, you know, to reason out, and you see it is not possible, Fred. Okay. So where you talk about opulence again, I mean, has opulence gone? Because my Senator Tabitha says the problem with the finance bill of last year was about opulence. Has it really gone? Have we not seen big loads of cash being taken to church, even by the president himself? Have we not seen somebody, a particular member of parliament from Ruto's area, you know, telling a particular, you know, newsman that this pair of shoes is about, I don't know how much, anamwambia yako inaonekana ni jua kali kidogo. You know, have you not seen these? And these are the things. But finally, to conclude, we just hope that this government and any successive governments will accept and employ public participation before any decision is made. Because the affordable housing scheme, no public participation was done. Now we have the leasing of sugar factories to private investors without any public participation, without even involving the leadership of those regions. So I just want to hope and pray that the government today, William Ruto's government, and any government that comes in future, that because public participation is an integral part of decision making as per the constitution in this country, that we listen to our people, and any decision that we make now and in the future, that we will have captured the feelings and the needs of our people, that we will not push down the throat of Kenyans decisions that we think are right, which may not be okay with them. Okay. That is my only plea. Listen to the people, listen to the ground, do as per the will of the people, because we are servants of the people and not their masters.
Thank you, Senator Nyoto. And just before, Senator, you go, I'm told we have another clip. Let's listen to that clip now.
Nimesikia ya kwamba kuna watu wanasema ati siku ya finance bill kila mjumbe ajulikane amefanya kazi gani ama amepiga kura upande gani. Mimi nakubaliana ya kwamba kila mjumbe ajulikane amepiga kura wapi. Mimi nangojea mbunge mwenye anaenda kupiga kura ati kupinga mpango ya serikali kuwapatia hawa vijana ambao waliwapigia kura ati ajira. I am waiting for the members of parliament who will go and vote against the plan to give these young people, majority of them, their voters.
All right, Senator.
Thank you so much. Before I respond to that clip, let me touch on this exam matter. As I've said it's a very sensitive matter. It needs more conversation. I think, Senator Nyoto, there's nothing wrong with that. Because if that is what was discussed yesterday, it is very important, it's a very sensitive matter. When it comes to matters of education, there should be more discussion with it. It's not about ignorance, but I support there should be more discussion with it. You don't need to always look at the things on a negative side, but we need also to understand what is happening within the Ministry of Education, because it affects all of us, it affects our children and all that. Now, quickly on the issue of opulence that have been mentioned, that was the start. We like it or not, that is where things started. But right now it is different. We've not seen that. And since we are already having public participation taking place as far as finance bill is concerned, I want to agree with my colleague as he said earlier, let us give people time to continue. Public participation is in the law. There is no shortcut in legislation. It has to take place, it has to happen. Now, thank you for playing the clips. I appreciate the first clip that you've played. I still appreciate it because the president talked about the affordable housing issue. He's talked about the kazi kwa vijana, how they're going to benefit. He's talking about supporting build Kenya, buy Kenya, instead of a lot of importation, because our young people are able to build, standard items. At the same time, he's talked about improvement of the TVETs and all that. There's nothing wrong with that. Further to that, even this clip that you have said, the president did not command and say, Honorable Ruto or Senator Nyotu, you have to vote. I have said, Ndimuli, you vote like this. He said, I just wait to see, you know, these people who are not voting, because I'm wondering, they don't want to support the people. This was our manifesto. This is what we promised our people. We promised them housing. Remember, this housing issue was in Kenya Kwanza, and it was also in Azimio.
That's what I had said.
Let me finish.
No, because you're the one who challenged that we bring that video.
Yes, yes.
Senator Nyoto had said that simply.
Yes, you know, he said like this. No, Nani Indimuli, walk with me.
Yes.
Listen to me. He portrayed and communicated that the president has said, like, there is a punishment if you do not vote for this finance bill. Alisimama hadharani kwa public, he said that if you, like, you'll face the consequences if you don't. He has not indicated any consequences.
If you could play what I said.
Let me finish. Order.
Play what I said.
Can
Our
I
time
finish?
is up. Our time is up,
Let me
Senator.
finish.
Just finish.
And it is good that you've played. I really appreciate, because the president said it will be so sad. It's the same thing I'm talking about, this financing, this education issue that my colleague has mentioned. If this exam issue, I mean the exam fee, the parents have to pay, I'm concerned. I'm saying, can we get into further discussion? What is happening? It's the same thing that the president said. This was our manifesto, the housing, the issue of the health issue, the SHA issue, and many other issues that have been placed. So if you do not vote for this, then where do we want we take our young people? How do we support them? How do we deliver in our manifesto? That is what he was saying. But I've told you, Indimuli,
in accounting,
you know, we've created a new thing they love to respond again.
No, it doesn't have to. It is clear, it is simple. What I'm saying is that the president did not threaten any member of parliament that if you do not vote. Number two, there are those ones who are affiliated to Kenya Kwanza that did not vote. What happened? There's nothing.
Okay.
They moved on with their lives. They're still members on parliament.
Senator.
It's good to go on record. I did not say that the president had threatened. I put it exactly the way he has put it. I'm waiting. No, the way the president.
The weight of your message is that
the way he has put it. Just a minute.
You
know, I've said
the executive
was my time.
There's nobody's time.
So,
actually, time is up. There's nobody's time. Actually, time is actually up.
I said the president had threatened. I'm
waiting
to see.
You see the word threaten?
Yes, I did not.
He did not threaten.
What I'm just saying.
Somebody doesn't have a point.
The owner of the budget.
This is now
heckling.
This is not a debate.
Senators,
this is heckling.
Let's listen. Senators, please.
The owner of the budget, the owner of the finance bill is the president, chairman of the executive, and he's pushing and persuading that, look at this agenda on this side. In accounting, there is what you call principle of margin concept, saying that, yes, these are the demand areas we have to address. Like now he's asking about education as a demand area. He's not even speaking about devolution. Division of revenue, they are pushing, I see now, proposing 473 billion. Up from it was around 400 billion last time. For the increase of 73 billion, it will call on a supply of the same. That's a finance bill. So in all this discussion, the same way we are agitating for expenditure side that favors given sectors, like now we are emotionally talking about the examination fee for our parents, it means the government has to cover. But for it to cover, the president, who is the owner of the expenditure, was persuading and saying, look at this, yes, I know, already discussion, politics at arose and say, reject finance bill. So it was like, if you are speaking about rejecting finance bill, are you rejecting employing youth? Are you rejecting doing this?
Yes.
So let's not miscrude that
we have gone out of
to mean control of parliament. That was wrong.
What
Julius
Ruto,
MP Cases.
That was not my.
Nyoto, Senator Moranga. Allow me to introduce
the president did not
and acknowledge
threaten
you.
any member of parliament.
Allow me to acknowledge you. Julius Ruto, MP Cases. Nyoto, Senator Moranga, and Senator Tabitha Mutinda.
Thank
you so much.
Imagine Senate. Look at the way they are fighting.
After the break,
there was no threat
from all this politics.
There was no threat.
Would you date or marry a colleague? That's a discussion coming up after the break.
Okay.
Yes, it is Relationship Wednesday. And Odida will be having a very large panel in studio. Let's do stand by for that. My name is Fred Ndimuli. Good morning.